LED light that I'm going to use for my tail light and my blinkers. I got it from revivalcycles.com. I'll post a link to it in the description. It's really cool. So it's a, let's see, 4-wire LED, and I could pick the length of it. I could pick whether it was a clear or smoked tube, and I could pick whether the turn signal section on both ends are red or amber. So the one I got is the 11.4 inch, the smoke tube. I got amber turn signals. So the middle part acts as a running light and a brake light, and then the outside part acts as tail lights. And neat thing, if I apply a little bit of heat, and it'll bend now, but according to their website, if I apply a little bit of heat and bend it, it'll stay bent, and then it's got some sticky tape on the back. So I'm going to use this as my tail light and my blinkers. I'm going to remove the fender, and I think it's going to clean up the look of the bike a lot. So I'm going to mount it to just a 1/2 inch steel piece of conduit. So we're going to bend the conduit and figure it out. It's going to be great. First things first, I have to figure out the curve of that seat to bend the conduit. So I just happened to have a sissy bar thing that came on the bike. You could use the back of the seat just as easily, but I think this is going to be easier to show. So all I'm going to do is I took a piece of cardboard that's already round. I'm going to put that there, and then I'm just going to take a pin and get as much of that on as possible so I don't have to cut as much off, and then just trace around it. And what we'll get from this is an estimate of the angle of bend that we need to do on that conduit. So there we go. I'll cut that out, and then I'll make a jig to bend that conduit. Now I'm going to make the jig to bend that pipe. And I'm figuring this out. I've never done this before. So I think what I'm going to do is take an old countertop that I found in the attic of our house. I'm going to trace the cardboard that I just cut out onto that countertop in order to know how to bend it. And then I'm going to cut pieces of that countertop and screw it back into itself. So I'm going to have the flat of the countertop, cut a piece in order to pinch the bar so that it won't come flying out, and then I'm going to get my jigsaw and cut rounded pieces in order to provide a template for me to bend it. So I'm going to do that and see if it works. This piece, cut it off here, and screw it in right here so that the bar will sit in between this piece of wood and that one, so it won't pop out. So it should, in theory, mount here, and then the pole will be sticking straight out that way. I can grab it because it's long enough and just manhandle it backwards to bend it in this way to that curve. Here's my jig. So I screwed down my cutout with deck screws. I know it's ugly, it's okay. And then I took that siding piece and put it right here with just enough room for me to slide the pipe in. So I have my steel conduit. I've cut it to the length that the back of the seat is, how far back I wanted to mount it, and I'm going to mount it to the back side of where the shot goes, and I'll show you that in a minute. But that is where the sissy bar originally mounted in, so there are bolts there that came with a sissy bar that I'm going to end up selling, which is why I'm not just using that, and so I can make this video. But I'm going to get bolts and put them in there. So I measured that out. Now what I'm going to do is, I found this on a YouTube video, and I will post the link to the video that I found it in, but I'm going to fill this with sand and pack it down really tight and cover both ends with duct tape. And then hopefully, according to the other YouTube video, it'll look good when I bend it. So I'm going to fill it with sand. I've filled my pipe all the way to the top with sand, and I filled it and then would pound it on the ground and then pack it some more and pound it on the ground and pack it some more, and I did that a couple of times until I just don't think I can get any more in there. And the reason why is because if I don't fill it all the way up to the very top, then as I bend, the sand is going to want to go to where there's space, and it will allow creases and those weird wobbles and ugliness to go in there. So I'm going to tape up the ends really good, and then we'll bend it. Here's the jig in the pipe ready to bend. So I've got sand in the pipe, duct tape on the end of the pipe. I measured out everything so that it will fit, and it's stuck in there. So I'm going to go grab that end, manhandle it around, and we'll have a brand new seat hoop. Oh shit. That was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. So now it's bent, and what I should have done is cut this straight line at an angle in right where it's straightened so that it could bend in enough this way to where it would be straight when it's set. So I'm just going to unscrew it and then bend it in by hand enough to where it sets straight and isn't at this weird angle. So here's my seat hoop. I've cut it to length. It's still full of sand, so I'm just going to empty all the sand out of it. And then there's a space here that has to be flat to clear the frame. So I'm going to measure how tall that is. I'm going to put a cut through half of this pipe, and then I'm going to hammer down the rest of it. So it will be a flat, supported-ish, thick piece of steel that I can then drill a hole through, put a nut and washer and bolt, and it should hold. So I measured that space I showed you, and that's how far it is. Got me stuck. And there it is. There's the cut, halfway through, the cut, and halfway through. As I'm sure you noticed, using the bench vise worked a whole lot better than using the hammer. So here is the finished product. So I'm going to drill a hole through here, again after I measure, that will mount it to the bike. So now we're going to test fit it on the bike. So the point that I was talking about is right here. So this is the shock bolt goes through, and on the other side of the shock bolt right here, and I'll show you a closer picture once I pull the fender, there's a thread. So this, my new seat hoop, will go and fit on the inside of that thread, and on the inside of the other one. Oops. I don't know if it's going to stay, but essentially what it's going to look like. Oh Lord, here we go. Okay, is that around the bottom of the seat. So once I take this goofy thing off and we have that, it's going to look super clean. Next, all I'm going to do is drill a couple of holes from the points that I measured onto the bar so that I can put some bolts through it and test fit. And there we go. So far it looks like it's going to work great, but this plastic piece is stopping it from going into that hole. So I'm just going to cut that plastic piece and angle it out from around that hole so I can get my bolt in. here it is on the bike. It's a little floppy, so I have to figure out how to mount it up, but that's what it's going to look like. I'm pretty pleased. As you can see, it's pretty straight. Nothing a little love and bending can't fix. But I'll paint it black, mount the taillight assembly on the back of it, and this will leave me enough room on both sides for my seat bolts. That's all for today. I hope it was informative. Next time we are going to finish mounting the seat hoop so it doesn't flop around. I'm going to wire up the actual tail light. I'm going to integrate it into the harness, reusing some of the old wiring from the fender, and I'm going to paint it so it blends all in. So please like and subscribe, and I hope to see you next time.